Hey, I'm Rhiannon, or Nonny. Yep, that's me. And just like most of us, I try to be good. I'm a feminist, I work for an environmental charity, and I try to look after myself. But I have a few bad habits. So every month I'm taking on a new challenge to try and be a bit better for the planet, other people, and myself. Welcome to the Resolution Project. Hey, welcome back to my channel, yay! So today is going to be a slightly different challenge than I've had so far. Quite a lot of the challenges I've done this year have been they've been taking something away from me rather than giving it to me. So, I stopped smoking, gave up plastic food packaging. Yeah, I wanted to do something that was kind of doing something this month. I decided to try and make a documentary. I work for an environmental charity, as you know from the credits, and probably because you watch this because you know me. But I've really been missing kind of the creative side of my life, and I thought that I'd do something about that. I hadn't made a documentary since university when I studied documentary making in one of their courses, and it's just been something that I've been really keen to get into. So then a pandemic hit, and partly we were all wanting to take up new things, and partly we had this kind of unlimited amount of time, but partly I thought, wow, this is actually a really cool thing that you could actually document from start to finish, and how amazing would that be? I live with quite a lot of really interesting people, quite a lot of key workers, and then I was the classic complete nervous wreck at the beginning. So there was a nice mixture of different stuff going on, and I thought it could make a really interesting story. But I made quite a few mistakes along the way because I'm so rusty. I didn't have any real training in documentary making. There were a few big mistakes that I made. I found that out when I decided to take an online course with Rain Dance. It's their documentary making certificate. I definitely recommend it. And I just want to say that I'm not going to give away any of their secrets today. If you're interested in making a documentary, I fully recommend them and taking part in their course. Cole Spector was brilliant. But what I'm going to talk about today is just kind of what I learned from this process of trying to make a documentary, and just a few of the mistakes I've made and will not be making again. Let's get into it. The first thing that I learned was about kind of learning your craft, and I think it's a really important thing to do, and that doesn't mean go to film school. I was at various points in my life I've debated going to film school, and every time I meet somebody from the industry they just go, I don't think it's worth it. You could probably put that same amount of money into doing some short courses, getting a bit of experience, because the industry is all about who you know anyway. So that's just a good learning to have, but I think you still do need to know what your craft is. My job is running playful environmental campaigns, so it's actually not unlike kind of forming a story for that. You've got to think about your audience. A lot of the time people see documentaries as kind of issue based, and which of course they are, but they kind of then focus in on telling the story that they want to tell and getting across the message that they want to get across. But you have to remember that somebody's got to want to watch it in the first place. So you still have to create and structure and make a story, and that doesn't mean faking it. It just means thinking about what it is you want to show. And it's so silly because I know all of this. This is how you build a campaign as well. You think about where other people's heads are at, and then you try and gear what your message is towards where they're at. So I know that. I do that on the daily. For some reason, when I decided that I wanted to make a documentary this year, all of that just flew out the window. I was just like, I'll just start pointing and shooting. And that is where the second learning comes into play, which is about planning. Again, I know this is simple stuff. If you want to make something that people want to watch or people want to listen to, you plan it. you put a lot of thought into it, you decide exactly what you need to show so you can show it. But for some reason, and I think it's an easy mistake to make, because you think about how spontaneous documentaries look, and it just kind of gives the impression that you can just sort of point a camera and you'll be able to suddenly make all of these amazing films that are there. And you know, I know that that's not really true, but it's an easy thing to miss. So what I'd started doing when I started making this documentary was I would see something interesting happening. I'm very good at that. I'm good at knowing what would be an interesting part of a story, and I would film that, but I still hadn't really planned it in the right way. So that's thinking about what do you want to convey from this? Is this going to be happy, sad, upbeat, funny? What is it going to, what's the tone going to be? Because all of that then inform your choices when you're shooting and when you're lighting, and that I think is the key thing that I missed, is that really pre-planning what it was that I wanted to make. Did I want to make a 1-minute film or a 20-minute film? Because they're really different things. So I think what I did was I just started shooting and was hoping for the best with everything. And then later on, when my idea was being slightly torn apart at Rain Dance, I quickly realised that I didn't have enough footage to make what I wanted to make. And even though I felt in my head like I had all of these amazing things, because I had myself crying about something. I mean, it's no difference there. I'm a bit of a crybaby. So when I got to the edit suite, it was an absolute nightmare, and I saw how different it was going from one approach to another. So I started off as one format, and I was trying to make it serious, and I very quickly was like, I don't have what I need from this. I just don't. I needed so much more. And I needed that thought and planning behind it beforehand. So I'm not rushing around trying to find bits of footage that I just don't have. And what I've ended up with is something much more comedic, very short, and quite frankly nowhere near as good as I feel I'm capable of. But I hope it's enjoyable anyway. Another thing I learned and kind of struggled with was shooting my friends. And I don't mean, obviously that would be horrible. I'm such a dog, you know what I mean. Love a bit of wordplay, don't we all? Yeah. God. So I was filming my housemates, and you know, they were the only people I really had access to, because we were all stuck inside. Basically, I wouldn't advise it. Obviously, if you've got a friend that has an amazing story, then that makes sense to have them as the subject of your documentary. And the thing is not everyone wanted to be that involved. I felt quite invasive quite a lot of the time if I did start filming. I definitely didn't feel like I could film too many difficult parts, and you know, you have so much emotional attachment to the people you live with, or at least this, you know, it's a much more complicated situation, and it's harder for you to remove yourself from it and just observe, because you might be that you're filming an argument or something sad that's happening, and I think being too attached to that makes it difficult, and it makes you feel really uncomfortable filming them. And that probably comes with my experience as well, because I don't have much experience. So I imagine that over time that would improve. But also, yeah, I think it was because they were my friends. I didn't want to impose on them. And you know, I said to Carl at Rain Dance about this, and he said, well, you know, you need to come up with, and it leads back to creating this really solid story and really solid plan before you start, because he said to me, you know, if you have that story and you're really passionate about it and it's something you really care about, then people will get on board with it. But because I'd kind of approached it from, oh yeah, do you want to be in my documentary sort of thing, you know, it wasn't the way to go. I think I just wouldn't film my friends again unless it was something really extraordinary that was going on, like a global pandemic. The next learning, kind of linking to that, is shooting yourself. Again, filming myself, not shooting myself, but shooting myself because that's the technical terminology. I'm so awkward. I'm like, why? Yeah, I found it really difficult to film myself because it was me doing all the filming. So it makes sense, you know, if you've got a whole crew there with you, or if you've got other people around that are a lot more on board with just being there to film things, then I think that would be better. But as it was me filming and trying to film myself. So sometimes I'd set up the camera in the corner of the room, or, you know, I'd have to go back and forth between angles. It's just too much to think about while you're also trying to have this really natural interaction and you don't want it to be staged. So yeah, I think, again, just not shooting yourself is always a good plan. Yeah, those were like the 4 main things that I learned. I learned loads of stuff actually on the course about structuring a story and all sorts about making a documentary that, as I say, I'm not going to give away now, but if you are interested, I mean, the internet is full of that information, and Braindance was a great course. So without further ado, I will show you my documentary that I made. It's premiering here, and then I will upload it onto YouTube maybe like a week after or something, so all the people that can't be bothered to watch my vlog can see it. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. It's definitely not my best piece of work, but I think it was fun. It was the best I could do with what I had in the end. And yeah, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, all of the different things that you can do. I don't think you can rate, actually. I think you can just do the thumbs up and thumbs down. Don't do the thumbs down, just do the thumbs up. Thanks, bye.
The time has now come for us all to do more. From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
Welcome to the Pandemic Survival Guide for Beginners.
Push the button to play. Brag about button and you're puffing away.
Chapter 1. Selecting your co-isolators.
Nothing to say. All you do is throw shade. Why you up in the way?
First, you're going to need a banging set of co-isolators.
16 tracks, ain't got nothing to say.
With stealthy coping mechanisms.
Knew something was fake. New age mama got nothing but praise.
That way, when you initially fall apart, they can pick you back up again. At least one of you should be NHS. They're very responsible. Having someone working from home and someone on furlough also adds balance to the group. Chapter 2. Health and well-being. Regular exercise and fresh air keep your mind at peace. Why not explore your local area? Gardening also does wonders for the brain, and it doesn't hurt to give your house a little spruce up too. It's important for every isolator to keep shipshape and shiny. You never know when you might be invited to an impromptu quiz or game of Pictionary on Zoom.
It's 4 guys and the dog and the car. What could it be?
Chapter 3. Cabin fever. Even with all these well-being activities, being confined for long periods of time can do funny things to your brain.
Stick it in the microwave for a bit. No, it's got metal in it.
Our advice is, embrace
Today, I went to the supermarket and I bought apple juice, Boris Johnson, a cassette tape, a digger, an e-cigarette, a fingering manual.
it. Chapter 4. Dealing with reality. If one of your housemates has to go back to their home country,
Bye!
you will mourn their loss.
I cried.
So be sure to find a new one that fits the group vibe. Make sure you stock up on food when you inevitably have to isolate. Allow extra time for queues. And if you do live with an NHS worker, you might have to take them to the test centre. Warning, it's apocalyptic. Chapter 5. New hobbies. By this time, your plant babies should be sprouting, so it's time to take up a new hobby. Acrylics, collage, or body painting could be viable options when you're not staring into the abyss, or making friends with the neighbour's cat. Top tip, just because you have time to bake doesn't mean you should bake. Chapter 6. Community spirit. If one of you has a birthday, make sure they feel special.
Happy birthday, dear Zoe.
Try distracting your eager-to-chat neighbours with free stuff like books and plants. And whatever you do, never, ever miss a Thursday clap.
We're late for the claps.
You will be judged.